Is the fullback position naturally the scapegoat of Sunday League? Why does it have to be that way? Is it because you're usually tasked with marking the fastest winger on the opposition team? Still, I'm going to show you how you can avoid the criticism and start getting the credit you deserve. If you watch this video until the end, you will completely master the fullback position and enjoy a much happier life on the pitch. I've packed today's video with everything you need. We'll cover the role of a fullback, movement patterns, essential skills, and physical attributes. Then, we'll wrap up with the must-dos and the absolute no-nos for every fullback. 1. The role of a fullback. The role of a fullback goes by many names depending on the tactics, the situation, and the era, whether it's fullback, wingback, leftback, or right back. My goal here isn't to debate the technical differences between these terms. For this video, we're talking about the wide defenders in a standard back four system. And to keep things simple, I'll refer to this position as fullback throughout. In a typical Sunday League match, the fullback positions are unfortunately often given to the 9th and 10th best players on the team, excluding the goalkeeper. Now, that might not always be the case, of course not, but let's be honest, that's how it usually goes. However, in my experience, the higher the level of the Sunday League team, the more likely you are to see their 3rd or 4th best players in those fullback slots. Often, they are the most talented players on the pitch, just younger and more energetic. This is because, in modern football, everything starts with the fullback. Why is that? In the modern game, teams defend as a collective unit, either sitting deep or pressing high. Because of this, the fullback is often the only position that gets a bit more breathing room from the opponent's initial pressure. Consequently, the attacking team tends to develop the play through the flanks rather than the congested center, and naturally, the defending team then tries to trap the ball on the sidelines to win it back. This is where the game is won or lost. When the opposition applies a high press, the first real test happens right here. If the attacking team successfully plays out from the back through the fullback, the pressing team is left numerically and physically disadvantaged, forced to retreat. On the other hand, if the press is successful, the ball won't even reach the flanks, leading to a breakdown in build-up play and a desperate reliance on meaningless long balls. This is why I dare say the fullback is the true starting point of modern build-up play. However, for a fullback, especially in Sunday League, your absolute #1 priority as a defender is man-marking the opposition winger. Wide forwards are usually the fastest players on any team, and if they break through or the flank collapses, your defense is in serious trouble. Therefore, your most vital mission is to shut down your man and, ideally, intercept the pass before it even reaches them. Remember, neutralizing the opposition winger is your top priority. Overlapping and underlapping runs are secondary, so focus on your defensive duties first. 2. Fullback movement patterns. First, let's look at the movement of a fullback when we are on the defensive. This part is what I consider the eternal dilemma for every fullback. Should I close in or should I hold my ground? In this video, I'm going to give you the definitive answer. Every situation in football can be categorized into 4 stages. When your team is attacking against a set defense, when the opposition defense is disorganized, when your team is defending in a set shape, and when your defensive line is disorganized. 1. Opposition attack. Defensive shape not yet established. First, let's look at the movement of a fullback when your team is defending, but the defensive line is not yet organized. Simply put, this is a counterattack situation. In this scenario, every defender must have one single goal in mind. That goal is delaying. The most common mistake amateur defenders make is trying to win the ball back immediately in the spot. The best case scenario here isn't necessarily winning the ball, it's jockeying the opponent, dropping back at the right time, and slowing down their counterattack so your team can recover their defensive positions. That is the ideal outcome. Of course, it's great if you regain possession through an opponent's mistake, but the absolute worst case scenario is overcommitting to win the ball and allowing the attacker to blow past you. This is where the mind games between the defender and the attacker become crucial. In a dangerous counterattack, the offense usually has the numerical advantage. The attacking team's goal is to finish the play, while the defending team's job is to delay the attack, or if they are about to be beaten outside the penalty box, stop it with a foul. Should you stop it with a foul? To be honest, I don't recommend this in amateur football. This isn't the World Cup. Even in professional matches, cynical fouls can be unpleasant to watch. Especially since we play with the same people every week, greeting each other with a smile. I really don't encourage that kind of play. Regardless, the most important thing during an opposition counterattack is the delaying play. The key to delaying is not getting too close to the ball carrier too early. However, if you stay too far away, you'll concede a shot. You have to maintain an optimal distance to pressure their shooting, passing, and dribbling lanes. That optimal distance is the hard part. Generally, when an attacker has picked up speed, the distance at which you can keep up without getting dropped is about 1.5 to 2 meters. But because the attacker will also try to manipulate that space, it really becomes a battle of wits. Eventually, even if you keep delaying while outnumbered, there comes a moment when you have to make a stand as they reach shooting range. In those moments, the team's ace is most likely to take the shot, and they'll usually prefer their dominant foot. This is why scouting your opponent beforehand is so vital. You see this even in international matches and at the pro level. Ultimately, the ball tends to find the star player for the finish. You think that might not always happen? Well, if someone else finishes it, then they've just become the new ace. 2. Opposition attack. Defensive shape established. The second situation is when the opposition is attacking, but we have our defensive shape fully established. This is assuming we are sitting deep to defend. In this scenario, moving in sync with the ball is crucial. What I mean is that while maintaining a consistent gap between defenders, the entire backline should be stepping up and dropping back as a unit near the penalty box. However, when the play develops toward your side, specifically when the ball is played to the winger you're marking, you must engage in 0-1 man marking. Again, your primary goal isn't necessarily to win the ball. The most important thing is to avoid being beaten while simultaneously preventing a quality cross from reaching the central strikers. These two objectives are difficult because they can be contradictory. It all comes down to your positioning, intent, and the gap you maintain. For a winger to deliver a good cross, they usually need to have either beaten you to some degree or have enough space between you and them. If you get too tight or lift your leg too early trying to block the cross, you might get bypassed easily. This is why it is absolutely vital to understand the opposition winger's dribbling patterns and their dominant foot. It sounds like a cliché to say this. Battle of wits is what defines your skill, but it's the truth. To borrow the words of Korean football legend Lee Young-pyo from an interview, he mentioned feeling a sense of euphoria when he completely overwhelmed an opposing winger to the point where they stopped trying offensive plays and only looked for back passes. Ultimately, the attacking team needs to create a crack on the flanks, but if the fullback dominates the winger, the opponent's attacking options become extremely limited. Now, what if the play is developing on the opposite flank while your team is in shape? Since the winger you're marking will naturally tuck inside, you must also move inward to maintain your man-marking duties. It is especially important here to keep checking between the ball being crossed and your man, making sure you never lose track of them. When a cross comes in, the best outcome is to intercept it and link it back to your teammates. However, since crosses usually land near the goal where opponents are crowded, the safer method is clearing the ball. The goal of clearing is to eliminate the immediate danger in front of the goal, so you should try to kick it as far away as possible. If that's not an option, settle for a throw-in. If even that's impossible, concede a corner kick to reset the situation. Even at the professional level, strong crosses are often cleared for safety. But if you're confident, the ideal move is to connect the ball cleanly to your midfielders. In the end, it's all about split-second decision-making. That's what makes football so difficult. 3. Our attack. Opposition defensive shape not yet established. In essence, this is our counter-attacking phase. The best-case scenario here is to finish the play with a shot or a decisive action before the opponent can fully reorganize their defense. However, in this situation, the fullback's role is relatively limited beyond maintaining the gap and pushing the defensive line up as the team advances. Occasionally, you might find yourself forced to join the counterattack. For instance, if the ball comes to you during a break and you happen to be positioned further forward than your winger. But truthfully, if that situation occurs, it might mean the positioning between the winger and the fullback was off to begin with. More importantly, in Sunday League, most fullbacks simply don't have the stamina to sprint forward for a counterattack and then track all the way back if possession is lost. That's why, instead of aggressively joining every counterattack, you should focus on pushing the defensive line up quickly while maintaining proper spacing. Just by having the backline step up in sync with the attack, you force the opposition forwards to retreat with you, which puts a significant physical burden on them. I know what you're thinking. You feel like if you overlap right now, you'll definitely score a goal, right? Even so, I'm telling you to hold back. Think about it 3 times before you commit. In defense, you can play perfectly 10 times, but one mistake makes you the villain. If you abandon your post and leave a massive gap behind you, it's actually worse than just being beaten off the dribble. It might not be as obvious, but it causes the entire team structure to collapse. If you feel like your Sunday League team is well organized, you really should thank your defenders. To summarize, during a counterattack, simply pushing up in line with the first, second, and third banks of players is enough to pressure the opposition forwards and fulfill your role as a fullback. Be extremely conservative about joining the rush. If you absolutely feel you must go, think twice, think 3 times, and make sure it's something you've pre-arranged with your winger. 4-hour attack. Opposition defensive shape established. Next is the situation where we are attacking, and the opposition has their defensive shape fully established. This is typically when we see what's commonly called the U-shaped buildup. While this style of buildup has faced some criticism lately, it remains the most efficient and safest way to switch the point of attack in modern football. Therefore, it's crucial for a fullback to move in a way that facilitates smooth build-up play. The reason why even a simple U-shaped build-up often fails at the amateur level is that many players don't understand the natural flow of the ball. Because they don't see the flow, they don't even think about opening up their body to receive the pass. Remember this: if the ball is coming from the opposite side, you must receive it while opening your body toward the far side, or at the very least, toward the front. This is why playing on the side of your dominant foot is so beneficial for keeping your body open. Let's look at this in more detail. For example, if a left-footed player plays as a left back, it's much easier to open up the body while receiving the ball with the left foot. Conversely, if you try to control it with your right foot in that position, it's harder to open up unless you use a specific touch or a turn, as you can see here. Since we aren't professionals who are perfectly ambidextrous, it's much better for a left footer to be on the left and a right footer to be on the right. Controlling the ball this way also keeps it on your safe side, the foot furthest from the defender, which gives you a massive advantage when dribbling or looking for a breakthrough. One thing I've noticed in Sunday League is that even if a team has an elite winger, if the fullback can't open their body properly, they can't get the ball to that winger, effectively wasting their talent. This is arguably the most important point of today's video, yet it's the area where beginners struggle the most. Your first priority should always be connecting with the central midfielders. If that's blocked, look for the winger on your side. If that's not on, play it back to the center back. If all else fails, look to kick long or dribble. Following this hierarchy of decision-making might not always be the perfect answer for every split second, but it is certainly the highest probability play. Finally, keep in mind the organic movement with your winger. If your winger tucks inside into the attacking zone, you should move up into the space they vacated. Rather than looking for a right or wrong answer, just remember that if the winger narrows their position, the fullback should naturally push higher to maintain the team's width and spacing. 3. What a fullback must never do. The taboos. 1. Don't gamble on intercepting the pass to the winger. When you're playing fullback, especially in Sunday League or amateur football, there are moments when a pass to the opposing winger looks weak or slightly off target. You'll think, if I lunged for that right now, I could definitely intercept it. It's tempting to imagine winning that ball and immediately launching a counterattack for your team. Now, there are no absolute right answers in football, so I can't say it's always wrong. But I strongly recommend that you don't go for it. Why? Because as a defender, your primary role is delaying, rather than just win the ball. More importantly, the risk of failing an interception is simply too high compared to the reward. Think about it. If you succeed, all you've gained is possession. However, if you lunge for the ball and fail, one entire side of the back four is completely exposed. You've just created a critical goal-scoring opportunity for the opponent. Unless you are 58,000% sure you'll win that ball, I recommend you stay home and hold your position. For this to work, the team shouldn't blame the full back just because the ball reached the winger. Instead, the focus should be on whether you allowed a dangerous cross or got beaten after the ball was played. Now, I know the aggressive pressing advocates out there will argue, you have to stay tight so they can't even turn. Right now, I'm going to address the eternal dilemma of the fullback. Should you stay tight or give them space?
사이드백을 하시면
stay tight
바짝부터라는 말을 많이
or stop the
들어보셨죠.
turn?
사이드
If you play fullback, you've probably heard people screaming, "Stay tight," a million times. To press or not to press? It's the eternal dilemma. Should you really stick to them or give them space? The answer is, the higher your team's defensive line, the tighter you should be. It's all about the gap. But even if the whole line is up and you're tight on the winger, if they play a 1-2 and sprint past you, well, there's nothing you can do. You're going to get blamed. That's just the result-oriented nature of the game. When the defensive line is disorganized or sitting deep, you shouldn't stay too tight. In amateur football, the line is almost always awkwardly positioned. Not staying tight doesn't mean leaving them alone. It means closing the distance the moment the ball is played to the winger. Before the pass, you block the middle. Once it's played, you close in fast enough to prevent a one-of-own breakthrough. Ideally, if the pass is weak, you get there in time to stop the turn. But don't just rush in blindly. You have to manage the distance. If you overcommit, you'll get bypassed easily. Another tip, in Sunday League, when a long ball is played directly to a winger, their first touch is often a bit heavy. Watch for that. When the ball bounces off them, that's your chance to press hard and win possession. Of course, there's always a risk of being beaten, but knowing this and waiting for the mistake makes a huge difference. In amateur football, it's rare to find a leader who can organize the line to push up or drop back as a unit. Even if there is one, if just one player is out of sync, the whole system breaks down. That's why amateur defending is often every man for himself. Usually you see either the forwards pressing alone while the rest stay back, or the whole team standing loose until a killer pass comes through, leaving the defenders scrambling. Now, back to the staying tight part. In Sunday League, the fullback is often at the bottom of the political pecking order, making you the easiest target for blame. So, regardless of what the tactical right play is, the correct answer for you might depend on your team's heavyweights. If the boss of the team wants you tight, you stay tight. If they want you to hold the inside and block crosses, you do that. As long as you don't concede or get beaten, they'll be happy. To summarize, when pressing high, push the line up and stay tight so the ball doesn't escape that zone. When sitting deep, close in as the ball reaches the winger. The goal is to stop the turn, but the worst-case scenario is getting beaten by a touch or a 1-2, so maintain a sensible, on-of-own distance. In those awkward situations common in Sunday League, base your judgment on two things. First, does your manager want you tight or holding the line? Second, are you confident in a one-of-one against that winger? If they love to dribble but you're confident, you can stop them, you can let them have the ball. But if you're losing the one-of-one battle, your best bet is to stop them from turning in the first place. It sounds like I'm saying, it depends on the situation. And that's because it does. But going in with this tactical awareness is far better than defending blindly and leaving huge gaps between you and the center back. Realistically, if their winger is elite, you can't stop them alone. You need the center back to shift over and provide cover. But we all know Sunday League reality is much colder than that. Now, here's a little extra tip. I don't necessarily recommend this for casual games, but for a high-stakes tournament, you can use this special technique. Occasionally. Just once or twice. I repeat, I'm not officially recommending this. If you're facing a very fast technical winger, hit them hard physically the moment the ball arrives. If you try this after they've already turned and started running, you'll just get beaten. And if you hit someone standing still, you'll get a yellow or even a red card. But if you collide while you're both moving toward the ball, you might get a bit of a pass from the ref. Also, when defending a 1-2, always follow the man, not the ball. Memorize this, follow the man. If you pull or trip them, it's a foul. But if you just make yourself felt by using your arms and bumping them as you run, it's a gray area that can be very effective. If you get physical early in the game, the winger might get scared or frustrated, potentially neutralizing their team's main attacking route. This is very effective against teams that rely solely on one-star winger. Of course, I wouldn't recommend this for a friendly game where you want to stay on good terms. This is more of a World Cup final move. And even then, with VAR these days, the game is becoming much cleaner. 3. Don't get trapped during build-up. Our attack, when the opponent presses high. This might actually be the most critical part of today's video. It is incredibly important. When the opposition starts pressing high from the front, the fullback, often the political underdog of the team, usually panics and doesn't know what to do. So, what's the best technique here? The absolute best option is the first-time pass. By playing it first time, you move the ball before the pressure closes in, effectively bypassing the press altogether. But who should you pass to? I'll keep repeating this because it's that important. Priority number 1, the central midfielder if they are open. Priority number 2, the winger in front of you. If both are marked, since the opponent has pushed up so high, there will be plenty of space behind them. In that case, look for the center forward making a run. Now, even if you're playing it first time, which direction should you never pass? Do not play it back to the center back or the other fullback who just gave you the ball. That's essentially passing the ball right back into the pressure trap. Honestly, the simple passing sequences you're seeing right now are the most essential skills for any Sunday League fullback. Since midfielders are often marked tightly, look to play a first-time pass right into your winger's feet, and then immediately move to support them and receive the ball back. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But this exact movement, or the lack of it, is what keeps Sunday League managers up at night across the country. And it all starts with the basics. Most players can't even open up their bodies correctly. Open your body and play it first time. At most, keep it to 2 touches. That is the key to surviving the press. 4 worst-case scenarios. The absolute worst-case scenario for a full-back is when your winger gets closer to the goal than you are. Putting aside uneven dribbles for a moment, the specific disaster I'm talking about is allowing a pass into the channel, the space between the center back and the full-back. As I mentioned earlier regarding the dilemma of staying tight, if you overcommit to the winger before the ball even moves, you leave this massive gap open. You shouldn't stay glued to them from the start. You start closing in only as the pass is being made. Another worst case tendency common among amateur defenders is the inability to judge aerial balls. When a high, bouncing ball comes in, amateur defenders often hesitate and end up letting the ball sail over their heads. I'm not talking about whether you clear it before the bounce, drop back to catch it as it stays low, or even make a slight mistake during the control. What I'm saying is, don't get caught standing right under the ball's peak. Whether you step up or drop back, just do something. The worst thing you can do is stand still while the ball bounces over you. Let's rank these scenarios by priority, from worst to best. The absolute worst is being beaten or allowing a long ball to let the attacker goal side of you. The second worst is allowing a cross or a shot. The third is forcing the opponent to play a back pass, allowing them to keep possession. And of course, the best case scenario is winning the ball and linking it to your team. However, forcing a back pass is more than enough to fulfill your role. So please, don't overcommit just to win the ball. 4. Essential skills for a fullback. 1. Anticipating the long ball. When the opposition is attacking and we have our defensive shape established, there are 3 main things you must do as a fullback the moment an opposing defender or midfielder prepares to kick. First, you must maintain a split vision, constantly checking both the ball and your man-marked winger. Second, the moment the opposing midfielder winds up for a long ball, you must stand in a half-turn posture and immediately drop back 3 or 4 steps. Finally, if they play the long ball, you track it. If they don't, you quickly step back up to realign the defensive line. In amateur football, perfectly executing an offside trap is difficult, and officiating can be inconsistent, so your mindset should always be to track the runner first. This is the ideal scenario, but in my experience in Sunday League, very few players actually anticipate the long ball. You're lucky if they even start running after the kick is made. The worst-case scenario, which happens surprisingly often, is when the winger is ready to sprint during the windup, starts running at the point of impact, but the fullback only starts chasing once they see the ball flying over their head. This is what drives Sunday League managers crazy. To recap, the best outcome is anticipating the long ball to prevent the kick entirely, intercepting it, or regaining possession. The second best is at least being in a position to compete in a foot race. The absolute worst is doing nothing until the winger has already gone past you, and then trying to chase them from behind. You must avoid this at all costs. If the winger's pace is simply overwhelming and you lose the foot race after the kick, that's one thing. But being slow to react and anticipate is what truly demoralizes your teammates. Why is this so discouraging? Because the fullback's primary job is to neutralize their winger. If you fail to even attempt that and allow them into the space behind you, the entire flank collapses, leading to a chain reaction that breaks down the whole defense. 2. Overlapping and underlapping. Our attack, when the opponent is set in defense. You can't talk about fullbacks without mentioning the overlap. In the past, the focus was mostly on overlapping, but recently, underlapping has become a very popular tactical term. Let's break these down. Both overlapping and underlapping are tactical movements designed to create a momentary numerical advantage, an extra man in the final third when the attack and defense are locked in a stalemate. As you can see, an overlap is when the winger tucks inside and the fullback runs around the outside. An underlap is the opposite. The winger stays wide and the fullback makes a penetrating run through the inside channel. The goal of these runs is to open up the defense and create a free man in a dangerous area. Having one free player in the final third can cause a chain reaction that collapses the entire defensive structure. Honestly, a fullback making a single well-timed run is often far more effective than a winger trying 100 fancy stepovers to beat a defender. However, as the saying goes, every opportunity comes with a risk. While a successful overlap creates a great chance, a failed one leaves the team incredibly vulnerable to a counterattack before the defense can reorganize. On top of that, the physical toll required to recover is immense. Even at the professional level, players usually limit these high-intensity sprints to maybe 2 or 3 times per match. For the amateur players watching this, I'd say once every 2 or 3 matches, or maybe once a day when you feel, this is the moment, is more than enough. We aren't pros, and our stamina simply can't handle doing it repeatedly. Also, overlapping should be coordinated with the team, or at the very least, with your winger. There should be a mutual understanding. For example, if I overlap and we lose the ball, you cover my position. If you don't have that kind of communication, it's honestly better to just stay home and hold your ground. Remember, a striker can fail 10 times but become a hero with 1 goal, but a defender can play perfectly 10 times and become the villain with just 1 mistake. 3. The sliding tackle, when it's your last resort. The sliding tackle is a skill that is often misunderstood in amateur football. I've actually seen some teams where both sides agree beforehand to treat any sliding tackle as an automatic foul. At first, I wondered if that was right for a football match, but considering the goal of amateur sports is everyone's health and enjoyment, I realized it's a reasonable self-preservation rule for them. However, if both the tackler and the opponent execute it correctly, a sliding tackle isn't necessarily a dangerous move. The key is to cleanly win the ball or clear it away. As long as there's no unnecessary raising of the foot, no studs up challenges, and no malicious intent, it is an essential skill for a full-back. A tackle is effectively a last-ditch effort at that split second in a one-on-one where you're about to be beaten. It's a technique where you throw your body to gain that extra half step of reach to stop the attacker. While it's great to be able to tackle with both legs, even at the pro level, many players prefer tackling with their outside leg, so don't feel pressured to be perfect with both. Those of you with competitive backgrounds know the battle scars that come with this skill. Sliding inevitably leads to abrasions on your thighs and hips. To prevent these, strawberry Turf burns, I recommend either avoiding tackles altogether, wearing long pants, or using padded slider shorts. Wearing long pants, or using padded slider shorts. I've linked some sliding pants below for you. The timing of a tackle is everything. Whether it's blocking a decisive shot, a cross, a breakthrough, or a through ball, you're looking to shut down that one critical window where the ball can pass. As I mentioned, the core rule is to get the ball, and only the ball. If you tackle toward the opponent's standing leg, the plant leg, that's not just a foul, it's something you should never do as a human being. It is extremely dangerous. If you can't distinguish between a clean tackle and a dangerous one, please just don't tackle at all. Finally, the biggest downside of a sliding tackle is that it's irreversible. Once you've committed to the ground, if the attacker is good at feinting or chops the ball back before shooting, you're out of the play and can't recover. You have to read the attacker's tendencies and timing perfectly. My final advice? Be as conservative as possible and try to stay on your feet whenever you can. For clearing, even at the professional level, there are many times when the best technical choice is simply to hoof it away. When your team is pinned back in your own half, and it feels like the momentum has completely shifted to the opponent, clearing the ball can be incredibly effective. We've all had those games where no matter where the ball drops, the opponent seems to have more players, and it feels like a goal is inevitable. In those moments, it would be great if the team could calmly play out with a series of slick, first-time wall passes. But sometimes, your legs feel heavy, and the pressure makes you freeze. This isn't necessarily the fault of one player, it's just the flow of the game. When you're in that rut, trying to play a sophisticated build-up is risky. The better option is a safe, solid clearance. When it comes to clearing, there's a hierarchy of priorities. Since the opposition is likely pushed high up the pitch, the best-case scenario is to launch the ball into the space behind their defense, forcing a foot race between your striker and their defenders. If you can't manage that, at least get the ball as far away from your goal as possible. If even that's a struggle, just put it out of play. But remember, not all out of play situations are equal. A throw-in is always better than conceding a corner, and a throw-in far from your goal is better than one right next to it. Also, while the opponents might hate it, kicking the ball far out gives your team precious seconds to breathe and regroup while they go to retrieve the ball. Sometimes, a long clearance into the stands is exactly what a shaky defense needs. Given the identity of this channel, where I try to teach football systematically from the ground up, you might think I'd discourage just kicking it away. But football isn't a math problem with a single fixed answer. Sometimes, a powerful, safe clearance is the right answer. This is especially true in youth, school, or amateur matches, where the psychological impact of a reset can be massive. Some might see it as unrefined play, but think of it from the opponent's perspective. The harder they press to score, the more frustrating and demoralizing our clearances become. And in football, that's often how the momentum unexpectedly shifts back in your favor. 5. Dribbling as a fullback. When you're playing fullback, it's generally much safer to dribble toward the touchline. The ideal play is always to link up with your midfielders or wingers, but there are times when a direct run from the fullback can be highly effective. While there are no absolute rules in football, in these moments, staying wide is usually better than cutting inside. In professional matches, because opponents expect the fullback to stay wide, attackers often overshift their defense to the flanks. This is why you see pros cutting into the center so often. However, in my personal opinion, for amateur football, you are still better off staying on the outside. The reason is simple: if you lose the ball on the wing, the danger is localized. If you lose it while cutting into the center, you're handing the opponent a direct scoring opportunity in the danger zone. The same logic applies to your passing. You must be extremely cautious with passes into the center of the pitch. For the exact same reason, if a central pass is intercepted, it almost always leads to a clear-cut chance for the opposition. 5 pro tips for one-on-one defending against wingers. In a one-on-one situation, assuming both players have similar speed, it's true that the attacker generally has the upper hand. However, as a defender, you can increase your success rate by utilizing organized cover play and analyzing the attacker's dominant foot, dribbling patterns, and habits. The most widely known method is forcing them onto their weaker foot. Naturally, if you steer them toward their non-dominant side, their shots, crosses, and even their dribbling will become awkward and less effective. Next, when defending Onavon as a fullback, it's almost always advantageous to show them down the line toward the touchline. You should adjust your body orientation to funnel them toward the flank. That way, if they do manage to break through, your center back is already in a position to slide over and provide cover. Remember, if you get beaten, don't just stand there and watch. You must immediately sprint to cover the space vacated by that center back. During a one-on-one, there's usually a physical battle for shoulder positioning after the attacker's final touch. While winning that shoulder-to-shoulder battle is ideal, even if you're a split second late, using your hands to lightly make yourself felt can be very effective at disrupting their rhythm. But be careful, smart attackers will look for any excuse to go down and win a foul. There's a very fine line between a fair challenge and a foul. Don't pull them down, just be annoying enough to throw them off balance. From an attacker's perspective, this kind of pestering is incredibly frustrating. Finally, as a defender, you can take the initiative by using active footwork to feint. Usually, attackers watch a defender's stance, feet, and center of gravity before making their move. By constantly adjusting your steps and shifting your body orientation, as you see here, you can actually bait the attacker into making a mistake. Outro. Today, we took an in-depth look at how to master the fullback, wingback, and sideback positions. What do you think? Do you feel ready to head to the post-match team dinner with a smile, without having to hear any complaints? Or, if you're a manager, you don't have to be the bad guy anymore. Just share this video, and it'll say everything you've wanted to tell your fullbacks. Moving forward, I'll continue to provide the most detailed and overwhelming football insights you can find.